like videos, movies being played like the God of Rock and like all of the late great Planet Earth starting, like the whole fire and brimstone was like cultural all around me all the time. A wretch like me, thank God for Jesus, thank Jesus for Jesus. Like it was like this heavy, heavy, heavy emphasis on grace. So you would think that the whole original sin thing would be like erased because grace, but no, it creeps in there. It had crept in there. And like, I always had this feeling, no matter how good I was, and I for sure had like and still wrestle with this whole perfectionist thing. And, but I just always felt like I had to step over my shame.
Hey, it's me.
She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right. Well, we are excited to be here, to be back. We took last week off. Paul, you were let me remember. Were you in Salt Lake City on Wednesday of last week?
Yeah, and it's my fault. We were supposed to go live last week, but logistics just didn't work out. And I was in Salt Lake City, which was about the toughest venue for me of them all. And I miscalculated the time because I was calculating based upon being in Central Time, and I was actually in Mountain Time.
Who knew there was even a Mountain Time zone? Like, what is even the point of that?
Yeah, who knew? Who knew? So, yeah. And so here we are. I'm home. I feel like our internet is wonky.
Huh.
I don't know. Am I stopping and starting on your video like you are on mine?
No, you're all good on my end.
Okay. Well, your video is like stop action video right now.
Well, okay. Well, maybe folks who are joining us on YouTube or on Facebook can let us know if they're having problems on their end or Instagram. But yeah, seems okay here.
Are you on the regular Wi-Fi or are you on your extension?
I'm on the regular Wi-Fi. Yes. Okay. Like,
I don't know if your extension works better, but anyway, here we are. And that is not interesting podcasting that we've done so far.
Okay.
Pucky says it's hard to see Ashley, but
yes, darn it. Okay. Carry on and let me see if I can change my Wi-Fi.
Okay. It seems a little better now. Well, now you're changing your Wi-Fi, so it stopped. But welcome to everybody on Instagram. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Jordan. Let us know where you're joining from. And tonight, we're going to talk about the Bible says what? And just things that have been difficult for us to get over that we were taught while in evangelicalism, but still struggling to maybe put it completely in the rearview mirror. And I have a present for Ashley that she's going to receive live on the air tonight. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal. But I'm home. I survived 15 events in 32 days, 5,860 miles in an RV, and now back home. And we'll be sharing more about that and about and about Ashley typing on our upcoming weeks and a whole lot more. Okay. How about now, folks? She types.
Is it better?
Well, just the typing alone is like you're typing right into the microphone. So it's like.
What is that when you let people who like listen to that sound to like refire your brain?
ASMR.
This is the ASMR. ASMR brought to you by ASMR. Thank
ASMR
you,
is a pleasant sound. This was not a pleasant sound.
I think typing like nail sounds are pleasant. I mean, that's why people like just sit on microphones and tap microphones to like calm and soothe.
I've heard those, and this was not that. Just so you know.
we have a we have a dispute we have to resolve offline about noises in our podcast. I'm really excited though to be that you're home and that we're like back on the air, because last week we had our little break, and I don't know, it was just like really cool to watch you, like literally every week, to be you know, tuning in from a different place and to have all these different experiences. I feel like we need probably one solid show just on the download. In fact, I think next week, is it next week or the following? Pardon me. In 2 weeks, you're going to just kind of do that for everybody who tunes into this podcast, which, by the way, if you're listening and you like our podcast, please make sure you share it with other people, because why not expand the world of evangelical-ish with Paul and Ashley? But yeah, you're gonna kind of walk us through what you were on the road talking about, and kind of give us a little more of a play-by-play. So
Yeah, the presentation was called "Jesus, the Christian Nationalist?" ? And it was just a bit about the history of Christian nationalism, how we got here, and what the danger of it is, and maybe what we can do about it. So we'll do that in 2 weeks. Next week, we have Thomas J. Ord on, and he recently was brought on trial by the Nazarene denomination, and we'll let you know what happened as he was on trial for being affirming of queer people in the Nazarene church.
you know, I am really anxious in a good way to talk to him and hear his story. There's probably nothing more traumatic in religious circles than to, like, basically, can we say, like, tribunal, like a military, it's like a religious tribunal.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's like, you know, it's like whatever the, you know, the Salem witch trials or something is what
Yeah.
it sounds like to me. So we are going to hear a lot from him, and you're going to definitely want to tune in. You can tune in live. You can also download. When do you usually post these? Like Thursday?
Usually on Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So new episodes every Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's going to be really good. But tonight we have kind of a cool topic also.
yeah, I did a series of videos recently on one man, one woman. What was Jesus saying? In the middle of this conversation, I'm going to stop and make a declaration that allows Christians to be homophobic for the rest of history and justify themselves by saying one man, one woman. And I explained that that's not what was happening in that passage. What it is actually happening is Jesus is mocking the hypocrisy of the religious people around a culture war issue, much as I do on social media with right-wing Christians every day. And it got us thinking about what are the things in the Bible that, as we've been going through deconstruction, like homosexuality and the clobber passages, that have been difficult for us to put in the rear view mirror, even as you're like, okay, in fact, people ask me often, what's the number one question you get? And it quite often it's people saying, I don't believe in hell, but am I going there because I don't believe in hell? And so I went online, I asked some of our followers, what are some of the things that have been difficult for you to get over? And I would love to see people in the comments who are on the live stream here to share what are some of the beliefs you held as an evangelical or a Catholic or any version of Christian that you were, that has been difficult to sort of scrub as you start to rethink your spirituality and faith. So kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah. And, it's one that we talk about all the time. So, like, it's interesting to do these podcasts together, because this hour that we spend weekly, just kind of like teeing up things, like we're basically, when we're together, like this is what we chat about. And, really it's hard for me to remember exactly when our deconstruction journey began. I know that yours began before mine. I know that it was and still sometimes is, but mostly worked it through. Been a very, very painful process, terrifying at times, but for sure liberating and worth it. And come to find out, there are all these people around the world and like having a similar experience. It's like, kind of this global cocoon shedding type of moment. So, then we pop on these, talk for an hour about stuff we're talking about all the time. And, I think would you say it's probably been about a 3-year to date, kind of a 3-year process for you getting to this point? Or when would you clock in at like, yeah, I think that's when I really first started unraveling my evangelicalism?
Well, I think I've talked about it quite a bit, that I've always had questions about our beliefs. Even as a kid, I was questioning, like, this doesn't really make sense. And during my pastoral Bible training, I really started saying, wow, this, like how the canon was compiled, and that we were taught the rapture and it's not actually in the Bible. And those things really started unraveling my beliefs, but I held on to we're the good guys though. So it's okay to be dissonant in our beliefs. But then when I discovered we weren't the good guys anymore, then those beliefs had to come into play. And so, yes, in probably since 2016, particularly because of whatever happened in 2016, I've said, I can't justify being dissonant in this belief system anymore, which I knew that I was. I knew that the Bible wasn't inerrant. It's clear. You really have to shut off some thinking to believe that. And so those are, I think so, yes, in the last 3 years, what I've done is given myself permission to let go of those things, even though I knew I was holding onto them dissonantly in the past.
I think for me too, I don't think I would have been that articulate. I don't think I would use the word dissonant, but the kind of weird stories about this and that or whatever that, like, to me, there were always sort of two parts to my faith or spirituality. And one is like the tradition, the evangelicalism, the things we talk about, the practice. But then there's also always been for me just this kind of deep core conviction that is unshakable and sort of just like always there. And so my deconstruction journey has been like really, really, really rattling the first, but and it definitely affected the second, but it's like, I described it this way. I feel like my deconstruction journey was like, I was stuck in a Jello mold. Okay. I was like a cartoon, like Bugs Bunny running into a Jello mold, and just like, I was surrounded by this, like, what is this world? I was held in place. And, like, I just kind of I knew everything was okay. I knew everything was going to be okay, but I felt very frozen. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things that I had to work through in all of this was probably the theology of the rapture. And I was trying to find something I could share here. But I did a post this week that just sent evangelicals over the top. And for some reason, I can't share it right now. So anyway, I'll just tell you what it says. I posted, Jesus is coming soon and loves the world so much, he will kill millions of people and send all of those people to eternal agony for not worshiping him enough. And then I had massive amounts of evangelicals going, that's not what it is. That's not true. That's not the story. I'm like, no, that's the story. That's what I've been told my whole life. Jesus is coming soon, and boy, is he pissed.
Pretty much. I mean, thus the t-shirt you're wearing today that says God is not mad at you.
God is not mad at you.
Yeah.
So letting that go. And I remember when our daughter told my mother that we didn't believe in the rapture, and my mom about passed out in our living room. And I had to say, you don't have to believe in the rapture to go in the rapture, but it's, it's clear when you start looking at church history and theology, the rapture is recently made up in Christian history in the last 150 years or so. And that's very, very new theology. The originals did not believe this way. And so it's just been a process there of, I don't know, did you have to get rid of rapture belief in your life?
Um, I I guess I feel like I heard all the stories and I knew all the right words to say, but for me, I never was like so locked in on um this is exactly the way things are going to go. I think it's probably because there was enough in my household growing up. My parents would say like, "Hey, we don't really know." Like I knew enough to know like pre-trib, like probably by the time I was 5, I could say like pre-trib, post-trib. Um, and it was almost kind of like on a shelf because in my experience it wasn't the dogma. That wasn't the dogma. And growing up Southern Baptist, it was like the one thing I knew: once saved, always saved. So that was also like this ultimate like safety net, which I know for you growing up in a religion where you were taught you could lose your salvation,
You
that
could
is truly
backslide.
I mean,
Yes.
they would preach against backsliding at like youth camp and things like that. And I for sure like had, rededication moments and stuff, whatever, when I was 14. And but I just had this constant feeling of safety and security that about like my position. Like I was taught that this God was so loving. My position with this God, I was taught it was a him, I was taught it was a father, etc., was like always secure. And that's really what rooted in me. So then the rapture stuff, I was like, it wasn't really a focal point, I'll say. But I'll tell you, the thing that just completely blows my mind is that things that were talked about as if this is always the way, Christians have been thinking, etc. Those things have only been around for like 50 years, 100 years, 170. Like that's crazy. I mean, even the film that you toured with, 1946, the movie, I had no idea growing up that the word homosexual was never in the Bible until 1946.
Yeah.
Like things like that the rapture's not in the Bible. And I'd hear you say that and I'd be like, wait a second, what? And I'd like try to look it up and prove you wrong. And you were right. So those kinds of things totally rock my world. But but again, like for me, there's always just been this core sense of like, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. There's a lot of stuff we probably get wrong. But I've always felt this deep sense of connection with a divine presence.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And some of the things I'm like, I've read the Bible 100 times, and how did I not think about this before I started listening to, either ex-Christians or even atheists who knew the Bible really well and were asking hard questions. And so like one of them is the inerrancy of the Bible, that it is, as Dan McClellan, who's much smarter than me, would say, it has univocality, which means one author and one voice. And if that's true, then you have to reckon with the fact that some say Jesus is the only way to the kingdom. And so you have to say this sinner's prayer and believe in Jesus and his death on the cross. But Jesus himself said the kingdom belongs to those who take care of the poor, clothe the naked, and visit the prisoner in prison. That is his exact words. And so those contradict each other. And as Christians always go, well, they don't actually contradict, but no, they do. They do. And I always ask my Christian friends, like, oh, well, then why did Jesus say it's about taking care of the poor and the prisoner and the naked? And so again, I think inerrancy was something that I really probably let go of while I was in my biblical training as a pastor, because it became clear there were contradictions. And I still have people say, no, there's not really contradictions. You have to have context. And so it's an interesting game that Christians play with the Bible, where it's like literal, God said it, I believe it, there it is, unless it doesn't fit the narrative. And then I start yelling context. And so the inerrancy of the Bible is another thing that I had to let go of, and really let go of as a pastor, because it was clear that it's a dissonant belief. if God wrote every word of the Bible, or if Jesus wrote every word of the Bible, then how did he forget sometime between writing Luke and writing John what day he killed his son on, or what day the crucifixion was on? So anyway, that was letting go of that frees me now to read the Bible in a way that I believe it was meant to be read, and to even say there's actually not a Bible. We have a compilation of 66 books, probably actually more than that, by multiple writers, probably more than we know. There's now theories that Isaiah was written by at least 3 different authors, maybe as many as 6 different authors. Daniel was probably written by 2 or 3 different authors. And so I can read these as stories to present sort of a moral view of life and heaven and connection between humanity and heaven, and really enjoyed the Bible so much more than when I had to go, oh, one man, one woman means condemn gay people forevermore, because I don't think in the slightest that's what Jesus was saying. And it's certainly not what Jesus displayed in his life.
I think, I mean, it all makes sense to me now. But I will say it's really been a struggle, over the last 2 or 3 years. It's been a struggle to get to this place where I feel like I am now, which is, having had a lot of things unravel, and then again, in the middle of it, in the middle of the Jello mold, feeling held, feeling intact and in place, but a lot of things unraveling, and then to journey to the other side. And you asked the question, like, what parts of evangelicalism have been difficult to shake? I think for me, probably the hardest thing to shake, only because of the number that it does on your head. It's so freeing though to shake it, is the whole original sin idea. Like, I think that, honestly, I think that's really the core, wouldn't you say? I mean, in addition to misunderstanding interpretations and misunderstanding the univocality and like all of those kinds of, I would consider a little more technical things, like that, it makes a lot of sense. But I think that just like gut level, like, holy shit, like this is a very different way to do life, perceive spirituality, etc., and to think of myself, to still pursue my faith is like that being moved out of the way. And
why don't you explain what original sin meant to you and what the freedom comes of not believing that anymore?
Okay. To connect with the divine. So it was like, I mean, it is so potent, the doctrine of original sin. And as that has been unraveled in my life, it's like, I'm telling you, I feel like I walk taller. I just feel so much more freedom. And again, I came from going from a super intense grace culture to like this charismatic, freedom, change the atmosphere kind of world. Like, still, that is all still encased with the shame wrapper. And so anyway, that's been like the hardest thing to get rid of, but for sure the most rewarding thing to get rid of.
Yeah. And so that made for me like this idea of, before I pray or before I share something encouraging with somebody else, I better have confessed all my sins. I better have a clean record with God, or else I'm an abomination coming before the throne, of horrible sin from Adam. And it's just, it's a dissonant belief. When you read in Romans 3 and 4, it's saying, if one man's sin made all unrighteousness, how much more does one man's righteous act make all righteous? What Paul, the writer, is saying there is, if Adam's sin makes everybody sinful without their choice, then Jesus' act makes everybody not sinful, because Jesus' act is greater than Adam's act. But evangelicalism tells you you're a sinner no matter what because of Adam, but you're only a Christian because of Jesus if you believe that he is the salvation of that. And to me, that's a little bit of a heretical way of looking at Jesus. You're making Adam the more powerful act of the two?
Yeah. And
Mhm.
Pucky is chiming in that Pucky used to think that if they forgot to ask for forgiveness for one sin, they'd go to hell. So like, that's similar to your upbringing, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And Jay Winters on Instagram says in the live feed, yes, fellow SBC raised here, and original sin was a biggie of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. All right. We have some comments that I want to hit from other people sharing things that have been difficult for them, some on the live stream, some on our Evangelicalish private Facebook group, which you could join. But first, I have a present for Ashley, and she's going to open it live on the air.
Okay, so gifts are my love language. So I am very excited about having a gift.
All
Here
right.
it is.
There it is.
It says, do not open until the first break. This would be the first break. And the wrapping paper is the ribbon are 2 little sticky notes. Like this.
I wanted it to be easy to open on the air.
Easy to open and decorative at the same time. So,
okay.
And are you going to say where you got this from or no? I just have to open it.
You'll know when you see it.
I hope it's a coffee mug from Fort Smith, Arkansas.
No, that would have been a good idea. I was just sitting here thinking. But actually, there's 2 things. So do the cloth one first.
The cloth one.
And you may like it, or you may want to gift it to somebody.
Okay, here is the first gift. It says, "Hey, evangelicals, love is not a 4-letter word." Woo woo woo. I'll show
it to the camera.
All right, here we go. Hey, evangelicals, love is not a 4-letter word.
There it is.
Coming soon to a hot yoga studio near you if you live in Fresno is this shirt. Thank you. And also a good way to pub your swag, which is available at evangelicalish.com. You can get one of these too.
Which I have God is Not Mad at You t-shirt on, which you can get by going to evangelicalish.com or pastor-paul.com. All right, next gift.
Next gift. Is this something to do with your trip, or is this just like...
It's not something to do with my trip. I'm sorry.
I thought this was like my road goodies.
I should have bought, as your family calls it, a little sussy while I was
I should have gotten a sussy from the Piggly Wiggly. That's what I wanted.
Yes, you should have.
All right.
You should have. They do have Piggly Wigglies, by the way.
Oh, this is pretty badass. Check it out.
It has the Ish logo on it if you're listening by audio. And what does it say on the other side?
God is not mad at you.
And what is it?
It's a coffee tumbler. Hot or cold bevy.
It's actually a wine beverage drinking utensil.
Oh, that is fantastic.
And I got it for you because your New Year's resolution that you may want to share with people.
My New Year's resolution is 2024, September, and we're closing in on the last part of the year. My New Year's resolution was to drink at least 1 bottle of wine a week. or I should say just to drink a bottle of wine a week. And I've been sharing that with people and they're like looking at me like, are you cutting down?
Are you ratcheting up or cutting down?
Like, no, you don't understand. I'm 52 years old now, and I still am one of those people who like, I never drink alcohol unless I'm out for a special occasion. And I'm like, what the hell am I waiting for? Like, why am I not enjoying a glass of wine like every night or every other night or something like that? So that is, it is a good way to remind me that God is not mad and I can drink wine if I want to. So
you can drink wine and say shit and God is not going to be mad at you. Exactly. And that will keep your wine at the temperature you want it.
Thank you. That's very thoughtful.
And I actually bought for myself a water bottle that says God is not mad at you with the Ish logo on it. So yes, we're also, we're giving gifts and we're publicizing our swag. So you can get coffee mugs, candles, wine bibbers, whatever they're called, t-shirts, hoodies, and whatever that shirt that Ashley has for yoga there. And they say, God is not mad at you. They say evangelicals, love is not a 4-letter word. They say God loves trans people, presidents, immigrants, and even Christians. That's another one.
Yes. And let me just say, as election season continues to draw near, it is important to win the swag battle. And I
Yes.
will say, I will, here's a perfect example. I'm driving home yesterday from hot yoga, did not have my t-shirt yet to wear on the way home. And I'm driving behind this car. And on the left side of the back window of this car was a picture of a crucifix and Jesus on the cross. And the words say, love means giving all. And I literally was like, oh, feeling the connection with this bumper sticker. I'm like, yeah, like sacrifice for love. It's so awesome. And then I look to the right side of the window and it says, Dear Lord, please wake the woke. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You almost had me there on like love sacrifices all. And then you had to go and like, condemn wokeism. So
You're one of them Matthew 5 people, the woke Jesus person.
yeah. So anyway, if I had my t-shirt on or had I been drinking and driving with my God is not mad at you, which I do not recommend, I could have been like, hey, bud, like roll down the window and been like, hey, take that with your bumper sticker.
All right. Pastor-paul.com. You can pick up your swag there. And also at evangelicalish.com. By the way, Ashley, my friend Elliot, who was on the trip, is on Instagram. And he is from Arkansas. I think from Little Rock, Arkansas. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh. If you could find me, Elliot, a Starbucks mug that at least says Arkansas, I would be so happy. I mean, Fort Smith, all the better, but I would be happy with just Arkansas.
Okay. All right. We'll work on that with Elliot. So let's get back to our topic. Things that have been difficult to shake that you believed as you walk into your rethinking of faith. And let me put one up that we shared in our Facebook private group. And this is Elizabeth, who lives here in Fresno, by the way. And she said, Psalm 37:4, delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. She says, I clung to hope during so many dark times. I mourn the loss of hope and the darkness lingers. Honestly, things do feel hopeless. And I think this is one you can relate to.
I definitely can relate to that. I think the sort of, I'm still wrestling with this. One of the things that deconstructing does is it kind of takes your Jesus concierge away from you.
Right.
You have to really kind of let that go. And it feels very, very lost and frozen. And again, in the Jell-O mold. And I am still curious about what does the personal connection with the divine look like, feel like, what experience is that post deconstructing. I'm super taken by, Richard Rohr's The Universal Christ book. I'm reading through that right now. I'm reading it very slowly because it's super powerful. And I'm told at the end there's sort of a reconnection on the personal end of it. But I'm choosing to kind of really let go of that because what it has done for me, it's like it has made me go inward and deal with my own sort of internal conflict, my own fears, my own coping mechanisms, like the things that I have done to kind of keep the pain away. I'm having to just confront that stuff. In the middle of it, I think I'm finding a much more resilient kind of like, it's not about the circumstances. It's not about like, all things work together for the good. All things work together for the good. All things, blah, blah, blah. It's not that sort of frenetic, frantic, like push away the pain with yelling Bible verses at it. It's actually like being in that pain and being present to it, which I know sounds like therapy buzzwords. And of course I'm in therapy. So like, hello, but,
they are therapy buzzwords, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
But I will say in the middle of that, and if you kind of get rid of the original sin thing and you start to just be open to, this divine love is in all of us. And it never was more clear to me than when my mom passed and I could still feel connection with my mom. And I was like, oh crap, like there is something real about this spiritual realm and what happens after you die. And if that's true, that eternal part of my mom didn't start when she passed. It was already there. So like that, and these are words we are taught in Sunday school, but they don't make any sense. That like that God lives in you, eternal life is in you. So that's kind of just what I started like going in to find, that is that like, what is that eternal love that's in me? And knowing that that is there, accessing that love, it is like what helps me get through the pain that I normally would push away with Bible bullets. Does that make sense? Or does that
Yeah.
sound like super rambly?
No, I think that's right on. And what we're, I understand what Elizabeth and you are saying. That certainty of, okay, we're going to get there safely on this trip because we're going to pray for traveling mercies. That is a comforting thing, rather than, oh, I have to deal with the fact that sometimes the world is a little random. And so I'm going to need to be brave, face fears, drive safely, all of these other things. But the upside is, I think, one, we get to be much more involved in the outcomes of our life. And then, as you well said, we don't have to live in the denial of, oh, this is terrible, but all things work together for good. That is the ultimate of denial. Oh, well, all things work together for good. No, sometimes things don't work together for good. Sometimes they're just shitty, and we have to learn to deal with them as human beings. But Christianity and that certainty gives us a modicum of comfort, but it also makes sure that we don't deal with the real issues going on.
But let me ask you this, and this is sort of like like a mental tongue twister, but all things work together for the good. The way I quoted that scripture was a way to blunt the pain of disappointment, was a way to just block off feelings and kind of, it was like my floaty that I would hold on to. And as I've let that go and I've been like, no, actually, this is just really painful. This is just really hard. And I just surrender to that. And then I find like that internal awareness of but love is still real. It actually, I work my way through it and I end up in like a really better place. So isn't that working together for the good? Do you know what I'm saying? Like maybe it is that still, but it's just different than what we taught with the like kind of say the chant, like maybe I don't know how to say that better than that. I will work on it.
And I think so yes, there's a good outcome to that. So I guess you can say, well, this is going to have a good outcome to it. But that denial of like, no, this is just a crappy day. This is just a hard thing I'm going through. Yeah. But I can get through it, and I can learn something about my own courage and bravery and ability to cope, to work things through and allow my emotions to be worked through, rather than a coping mechanism of whatever ism you want to put in there: drinking, eating, smoking, you name it, whatever, reading more Bible, whatever coping mechanism you use. I think is just a much healthier way to live.
And like, quote, much healthier. I would probably choose more powerful words. Like I think it is actually the path that Jesus put us on. I think that's the path Jesus was on. So I actually think it is fulfilling things that I was taught as a kid were available, but like the practice to get there ended up stunting, blocking, and blunting so many things and cutting me off from relationship with other people, with myself, etc. So it's like a really big deal.
Do you think that, to Elizabeth's statement, that then we can, how do I say this? So I'll just say this, and this may not be exactly what I'm thinking, but we can be producers of hope, rather than having to like confess our sins and hope that a jealous God in heaven will give us something to be hopeful about. I find it a little more hopeful to know I'm involved in this process of where life goes in universal divinity, rather than just being at the whim of a God who the Bible says can hate Esau and love Jacob on a very random basis. So I don't know. I find it a little more hopeful, maybe.
Yeah, super interesting. I have not thought of it that way. And that is definitely like, I got to think about that and kind of unpack that with you a little bit more. I
Okay.
think what is ultimately hopeful for me is like, I just imagine, okay, like those of you who are physicists, who I'm sure are listening to the show right now while you're relaxing from your physicist duties.
Yes.
Like there is this thing now that scientists have discovered and measure and like can say it's a real thing, and it's antimatter, and it's what holds everything together. And it's like all, I hear these like everything's just energy. It's just like the way the energy forms that creates the person or but it's all connected. All those concepts, right? That I don't really understand, but it's like makes sense to me. Just imagine like love is all around us. Love is real. Love is true. It just is. It just is. There's nothing we can say to this love like, oh, I worship you, love, therefore you're more lovey. No, like there's nothing you can do to take away from this love is here and is real and is accessible, is in us and all around us. And so
You're making me think of Love Actually, and love is all around us. Come on and let it snow.
Now I'm imagining that guy like in his underwear doing that. That's like really terrible. I was like preaching just then. But do you not like when I have had really deep, dark, heavy moments over the last 3 years, and I've just been able to sit and I focus in on, and I just like imagine like that love is real and that love is here. I'm not trying to manipulate it. I'm not trying to get it to do something for me. I'm not trying to convince. I mean, it's just an aware. It's just being aware. My outlook completely changes when I do that.
Yeah.
I find that to be hopeful. I find that to be like, holy shit. Like I didn't have to talk myself into something. It's just opening myself to the awareness of that love, period. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, and even if it doesn't, it's still a good point. So you keep asking me if that makes sense at the
well,
end.
because I feel like
it makes sense because it's your process that you're working through.
But your point about you being more like, it's so interesting because you're like, I feel like I can be more directly involved and create that hope. And that is better than this passivity and this sort of standing back and waiting to see if God will choose me for a favor or not. So interesting that you're finding energy, excitement, hope, etc. from that. And I'm like, no, I am sitting here being still and being aware and meditating on the fact that this powerful love exists. And that's totally changing my world. So yeah, two different perspectives.
Well, and the hard thing about this outside of Christianity, which again compels you to be in denial about these things, is now you have to confront real emotions, real pain, real boundaries, all of those things. And it doesn't make everybody very happy around you. That is something that I've never been allowed to do in my life, to make people unhappy by caring for myself, feeling my emotions and all those things. And so that kind of sucks. And I think it's again, part of why evangelicalism is so comfy, like a really soft pew, because we can just go, well, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And we can stuff those feelings and we think we've done something. We've accomplished something.
Did you
forgive and forget and move on?
Did you just say soft pew?
Soft pew, yes.
Like as in the pew in the church?
Yeah, soft, comfy pew where you sit your ass and
yeah. Do you know when
you
you
don't
said
have to
that?
do anything?
You know what's so funny is when you said that, I instantly remembered that as a kid, those pews were not very soft. They had the thin little cushions on them, and they're super uncomfortable. And they would polish the wood. The smell of the furniture polish on, when you're like 5 and you're sitting in the pew and you're just inhaling toxic fumes. That's what instantly came to mind when you said that. I'm like, I didn't even realize that's like a traumatic thing I got to work through, is the smell of the soft pew. Blech.
Well, And I can smell that smell because I remember as a kid when we went from the wooden pews
Yeah.
to the padded pews.
Yeah.
And there were some who were like, boy, Christians have gone soft. We have to have a padded pew now. But as somebody who would occasionally go to sleep during Sunday night and Wednesday night services, which were so fucking boring.
The worst. By the way, do we have time for one more
The pew
comment?
really did help. Yes. Yes.
I would love
First, let me say on Instagram, Elaine says she just ordered a shirt and she can't wait to wear it in Tennessee. So yes, thank you, Elaine. Oh, that's nice.
And Elaine, can you drink and drive in Tennessee? Because you could get one of these.
I don't think you can drink and drive in any state anymore.
You can in Louisiana. Didn't you tell me that? You can get like drive-through margaritas.
You can buy a drive-through margarita, but I don't think you can drink it while you're driving. It has to be covered up, I think. When I lived in El Paso, Texas still allowed you to drink and drive, but while I was there, they did abolish drinking while driving. You still
a good thing to abolish, by the way.
Good thing.
So we just say the government doing a good thing. But I would love to, post this comment here from Pucky. I was raised a girl and was taught that women are less than men, basically. So it's been hard to believe that I'm truly as equal as men, even though I'm non-binary now. Can I get an amen?
Yeah.
That is a really interesting and powerful point. I find that now, again, I'm 52. I'm, had a lot of accomplishments professionally. I've led, a lot of stuff. But I still think I walk around feeling inferior and that I have something to prove because of my gender. That's real.
I do believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we also have a comment from Butterfly Nay on Instagram that says, because I am a queer woman, I believe that I am not deserving of a romantic partner. I see it for others, but still wrestle that God will not do it for me. So yeah, the issues around gender and sexuality clearly are ones that are hard to shake.
Yeah.
Queer people and allies alike.
Yep. I see, like other people can have love, but I can't. Yeah.
Yep. And Pucky said the pews should actually be made more comfortable, although I think many people would sleep. And then Doug on the left says, I've got the interlocking church chairs in my garage. So, oh my God, we can remember the interlocking church chairs, can't we? I'll tell you that.
Yeah, because you got to set them up and you got to take them apart and you got to stack them after the service.
Stack them, yes. Oh God, yes. What a nightmare. All right, we do want to remind people. Oh wait, I got another bot in, and it's a whole bunch of new copies of Religious Right, Religiously Wrong, my novel about what would Jesus say to the evangelical right-wing church were he on earth today.
We need to send a copy of that book to Pucky. Does Pucky, do you already have it? Because I was just what I was thinking when I saw Pucky's comment about being raised female and now non-binary and feeling less than. You definitely should read this book. So let's make sure we have your address and we can send that out to you.
Yeah, Pucky, DM that to me. By the way, Elaine says, I can drink whiskey and walk all around the entire state of Tennessee. So we're in for that. So yes, Religious Right, Religiously Wrong. You can get it on Amazon, or you can go to my website, pastor-paul.com. You can even order an autographed copy, which one day when I'm dead will make it worth so much more money if you have.
And Pucky has read it online, but we definitely will send you a copy. So make sure we have your address and maybe, yes, in fact, autographed. I want to mention that the story that Paul writes about in this novel is based on an amalgamation of real world events that we experienced here in our hometown of Fresno, California. An amalgamation of people who make up the different characters. And it is a really, really beautiful story. And Paul, when it came out of you, I'm going to say it that way because I had no idea that you had an interest in I guess I could look back and say you've always been the storyteller. But you told me one day, I think I have a book that I want to write. And you sat down and took sabbatical from work and you started writing this book. and this really, really beautiful, detailed story came out of you. And it's just a cool expression of, you probably didn't realize all that you were picking up in your life and all that was sort of coming to you and into you. And then you poured it out and orchestrated this amazing story. So I definitely commend it. And here's another reason to go online and order this book is, bless your heart, Paul. You went to all the trouble to order this big box of books and have Amazon ship it to your first location,
Pensacola, Florida.
Pensacola, Florida, so that you could have them as you made your way back across the country. And I imagine you like chasing an Amazon truck all the way across the country. Never got those books while on the road. So now you've got this fresh stack.
Bleep you,
and,
Amazon.
You're anxious to make sure they're in the hands of folks who would enjoy reading the story. So check those out.
Amazon cost me book sales. I want to say to Pucky and to what was the other person, Butterfly Nay, like, yeah, you deserve love. You just, the whole point of God is not mad at you, is there is no being in the universe, and maybe this is one of the things I had to shake, that would say loving who you love because you love them isn't an abomination and never can be, and is not what the Bible says at all. So yeah, as much as I can give that hope to you, and I think if life is energy, we can connect on a divine level and say, help me to carry this burden with you, or let me help carry this burden with you, or give you some hope, energy, love. Yeah, I just want to send that to you all. And queer people, God is not mad at you. That is bullshit that came from man-created religion that I reject wholly and completely, because it's a damaging, dangerous, terrible theology that is not really based on the Bible. Okay. Thus ends my sermon.
I was going to say bullshit from the devil's bottom.
Fair enough. Yeah. Good visual.
The title of this episode, bullshit from the devil's bottom. Okay.
All right.
Also, can I say one more thing on that? Like,
sure.
I feel like a lot of times when, like, the deep pain that we all carry, people can say the words at you, like, I felt less than in so many ways in my life. And like, but I would be embarrassed to admit that, because then I would feel like maybe I wasn't a good enough Jesus like there's all the shit. And yet it's true. And we all have these deep places where we carry sometimes generational pain, in addition to things that we experience as individuals. I heard about this thing, and I think I've experienced it also. Paul, have I talked to you about this?
I lost you for just a second there. What were you saying?
I was saying I heard about this, and I think I've experienced it in my therapist's office, called spontaneous unburdening.
Oh no.
And the point is, like, there's a lot in life that you just have to work through. And you got to do that deep inner work. And I believe in that. It's real. And I've just feel like a different person in a lot of ways because of that inner journey. And so sometimes it's just like this long, laborious thing. But I'm telling you what, every now and then there have been moments where I'm just like, whew, like something just leaves me. And it's like, whoa, I can see something more clearly, or I instantly think differently about a situation or something. So I'm saying all this to say to Butterfly Nay, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if sometimes a person can be annoyed when people like us are like, you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. And you don't feel different on the inside. And I guess what I'm trying to lift up is like, yeah, because there's a lot of inner work we know we have to do, but I am also wishing for you and sending to you the idea that you can also be spontaneously unburdened. And if there's anything Paul and I can do to lift that up for you and put that in front of you, is like, hey, new truth is available for you today. You can flip the switch on the way that you've been thinking in the past. That is what I hope for you. Because I've had a few moments of that, and it's really life-changing.
Love it. All right, let's finish up with what's on my mind. Do you have anything on your mind today?
Okay, so this is the part of the show that every week we go, oh, let's do this, and then we don't. And it's the part of the show where random, like, what are you thinking? What are you reading? What's inspiring you? Or just like, what's on your mind that's kind of like your new and interesting and different journeys. If I tell you what mine is, you're going to think I'm weird. So you go first.
Okay. So I've been thinking about my journey across the country with the 1946, the movie people. Shout out to Rocky Roggio and the rest of the crew. That I did find people, as we talked about before, people in Texas and Oklahoma and Mississippi and Alabama and these regressive places, which are regressive with their legislation and a bunch of other things, to be incredibly loving and accepting. And at the same time, knowing I'm in places where queer people, non-gendered as I consider myself, are in danger because of the laws that are being passed by probably some of these people who are being kind to me in the checkout stand at Piggly Wiggly, or Love's, the Love's truck stop, or those. And it's just such a dichotomy of, two things being true at the same time. People are incredibly capable of being loving and accepting, and also incredibly capable of being blinded by religious and sociological pressure and bondage and principality, and not only vote against my best interest or the best interest of queer people and their allies, or these poor women I meet who have to take their trans daughters from Frisco, Texas to San Diego to get care for them because the care has been criminalized in Texas. All of that can be there, and it's still horrible things can happen in these places as well. So humans are capable of greatness until, I think, Christianity or religion in general takes that soul and humanity away from us. So that's what's on my mind today.
Yeah, religion and power, I would say, right? Like distorting things for personal gain. Okay, that's very beautiful. So I feel sort of embarrassed that this is what I'm thinking about and reading about, because I don't know, I'm reading about a book called The American Genocide, and it's about California native people in California, and like what's talked about as a genocide from 1846 to 1873. And I'm fascinated and like learning a lot. And I don't know, I think I have always thought about our treatment of Native peoples like kind of way back there in history. And I'm literally thinking to myself, this era goes to like 1873. I was born in 1972. So less than 100 years before my birth. That's just not that long. And so I don't really know why I'm kind of in this pursuit of new understanding or learning, but something about this is really important and powerful to me right now. And I'll just leave it at that.
Why is that weird?
Because I think it's maybe not what you would have expected me to be like, what's on your mind? The American genocide. Like, I mean, I don't know. And it's a very, very, very thick and detailed book that is like page after page of this horrible thing happened, this horrible thing happened, this horrible thing happened. And it's just very intense.
There is, I don't, there's talk about reparations for Black people in California right now, or in the Bay Area. Maybe it is focused.
Oh, it's statewide. There's like several bills being considered. Yeah.
And that's wonderful. But when you think about it, like, we of white European descent stole this land from its inhabitants and used Christianity as a justification for it in very many cases, if not the large proportion. And it's a horrible thing. And if I think about spirituality of community, and I know people have done like confessions and apologies and all that, but I do think there still needs to be a reckoning of us as a people saying, yeah, we did this and it was awful. It was awful. And you watch like that movie from, what happened to the indigenous folks in Oklahoma. I can't remember, with Robert De Niro and Leonardo in it.
A White Flower Moon.
Yeah. And you just think, this is horrifying what we did to a people group, thinking them inferior to us.
Yeah. And like, I think there's so many ways in which people are patronized, and there's even like positioning and posturing in political circles to be like, I'm the one, like there's a lot of savioring happening. And I just don't know what in the world do you do that really does create healing opportunities, because like,
Yeah.
it seems like there's a lot of things that are talked about that are also themselves traumatizing and like horrifying. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about all that, but I'm thinking about it. That's the point of this topic. What do you
Okay.
think about? I'm thinking about that.
All right. And Doug on the left says slave owners already got their reparations. Says a lot about the country. I know for sure in England, when they freed the slaves in England, yes, the slave owners received reparation from the tax coffers of the country. So when people get upset about reparations, that might be something to think about. All right. Well, we're back at it. I'm back home and we're back at it. And you have your wine drinking glass now, and we're going to be cooking forward. Thomas J. Ord will be with us next week, put on trial by the Nazarene denomination, and he'll tell us about that experience.
And don't forget that you can sign up, you can subscribe to all the cool information about Ish and Unconventional Pastor Paul at evangelicalish.com. Subscribing is free. All you do is go and say, hey, give me your newsletters. And like, I want to know when you guys are talking about stuff. It's free and it's awesome. You can also support what we're doing here at Evangelicalish and Unconventional Pastor Paul at the same website, evangelicalish.com, or you can go to Paul's website and sign up. It's like I don't know, $4.99 a month or something like that. Makes a big difference and allows us to keep doing what we're doing and hopefully create an even bigger community. At the very least, if you have listened to this episode, you should make sure that you talk to somebody about this podcast and encourage them to also listen in every week.
And buy this book for 5 of your right-wing friends. Religious Right, Religiously Wrong. A
Christmas
novel.
is coming up. You could like stuff this in like everyone's stocking. Okay.
Actually, I think you need to do it before the election. So get it right away, because ballots are coming out very soon.
There you go.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. All you guys on Instagram, it was great to see you. And we'll talk to you again soon. And everybody on Facebook and wherever else we are, YouTube, we will talk to you all very, very soon.
See you next week.